The long wait for Euro 2020 is finally over. In the build-up to the big kickoff, we are doing something special. We have scoured the Twitterverse to find a representative from each of the 24 nations competing in this summer's European Championships. We will be recording a preview with each representative who will be sharing views on their nation's hopes and expectations throughout the tournament, and most importantly, the fantasy assets we should be looking out for. Welcome to Euro 2020 Happy Hour. Hello and welcome to our Euro 2020 preview series with myself, Sham, otherwise known as FPL 2 Guys 1 Cup on Twitter.
And myself, Rob, otherwise known as FPL Panda.
Rob, we've got another guest tonight, and they are representing a nation who got to the semi-finals in the last Euros, and that is Wales and Carwyn. Carwyn, welcome to the pod.
Hi there.
How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
Good. Right, Carwyn, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, what football team you support, if you play FPL, where you're from?
Yeah, sure. I'm Carwyn. I'm from Swansea in Wales. I'm a Man United fan. Yes, I play FPL. So quite competitive in the family. So just we tend to have a mini league together every year. So yeah, it's been good.
Nice. Okay, let's start the pod with talking about Wales then. So how did you guys do in qualification?
We came second in the group in the qualifications, behind Croatia. It was quite a tough group, if I'm being honest. Obviously, Croatia were runners-up in the last World Cup, so we were never really going to finish ahead of them. But we did have some tricky sort of teams with Slovakia and Hungary. So yeah, it was. We were hoping that we would qualify through, but it did look a little bit tricky at one point. But we finished the group well, and yes, we managed to finish second and qualify via that way. Then,
nice.
It's quite interesting with that group that there's out of the 5 teams in the group, 4 of them are going to the Euros.
I know, yeah.
It's crazy that you've got all 4 apart from Azerbaijan and the ones left behind. Everyone else, one way or another, because the other 2 had to go through playoffs. Everyone else one way.
Yeah, it does go to show that it was obviously quite a strong group as well. So usually sort of qualifying for the Euros in 2016, we always used to have really tough groups because obviously we hadn't qualified for Euros before, so we were down the list of rankings and stuff like that. So we had a little bit of luck with this one, but it was a tricky group to get out of. But yeah, it's definitely quite a strong group.
So obviously you said that, the last Euros was the first time you kind of went to a major tournament for a long time. What kind of change in that Wales side that has made you now a side that may hopefully carry on going to a major tournament?
To be honest, I think it's more the fact that we've got, for one, sort of kind of strength in depth. Pre the 2016 Euros, it was very much that if we got sort of 1 to 11, everyone out on the pitch, then it was a relatively strong 11, but we never really had anyone to come on, and make a difference or anything like that. Whereas there's been youngsters that have come into the group now, that, are playing in the Premier League or the Championship and playing regularly, that, if someone is missing, for instance, Ramsey, I think was injured for a while in the group stage. But we had players that could actually come in and, take his place. Obviously not quite to the same standard, but, at least good players playing in the Championship and the Premier League then. So I think for once we tend to have, 2 players pretty much for most positions on the pitch then.
Okay. And obviously the qualifications was quite some time ago. And obviously since then there's been the Nations League and the World Cup qualifiers. What sort of form are Wales coming into the Euros with? Because obviously I know that you guys had quite a feisty game with the Czech Republic where you ended up winning 1-0. Was that a good game, or are you guys in good form at the moment?
I think we're in not bad form, to be honest. I think a lot of it is to do with sort of we've been really good sort of defensively since pretty much since the last Euros, where I think Coleman played three at the back and just basically at the time was to try and keep as many clean sheets and hope Gareth Bale would do something the other end then. Pretty much. But we've kind of evolved around that now. So I think, we're in decent form. But it is a tough group to sort of that we've got obviously in the Euros. So I'm quietly optimistic we'll get through it. But, it's going to be I think if we got through the group stage, and then it's a decent showing again then.
Okay. And what would you say are the main strengths and weaknesses? I know you touched on it slightly in terms of the defence. Would you say the defence is the strength or the attack, or what would you say the strength on our side?
I would say, probably the defence is probably one of the strengths. We tend to, again, going back, we've got lots of defenders that are playing regularly now. We've got a couple of youngsters, I think is Nico Williams from Liverpool, who's a good sort of backup option. So we tend to be quite solid defensively. I think when it goes to sort of the attacking threat, it does very much depend on if we've got everyone out. So we've had Kiefer Moore's played a few matches, a few of the last matches, and I think that it was a really good option as an out-and-out centre forward. I don't think we quite look the same when we've got Bale just up top on his own. I think I prefer him playing sort of as a more of a free role behind the striker. But with the likes of Daniel James and Brooks and Harry Wilson, we've got a lot more depth going forward. But I think it's mainly, if we're solid defensively, then we've got, a good chance then, really.
Yeah, because those players seem quite creative. Daniel James, Harry Wilson, Daniel Brooks, obviously Gareth Bale. They seem like attractive players who can create for the striker. Is that the way that you kind of see it?
Yes, yeah. Like I said, I prefer Bale, like I said, as maybe like a number 10 or something, where he's got sort of the freedom to do what he does. I think sometimes when he's up top on his own, it kind of negates a little bit of what he can do. But I do like sort of, Harry Wilson and especially Daniel James as a Man U fan. It's good that they really do drive at the defences. So, it does stretch a lot of teams with the pace and stuff that we do have. They're definitely the creative element of it. I think mainly the midfield that we've got is more sort of just functional, really. We tend to play Ampadu as like a holding midfielder, and very much just to kind of solidify everything, and then hopefully, the guys up top then can be the creative force then, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your talisman, and that is Gareth Bale. What does he bring to this Wales side? Because obviously he is world class.
Yeah. It showed in the last Euros that, at that point he was, one of the top players in the world, and he really did sort of, really drive us forward. He's one of those players that, he can create something from nothing. I mean, we've seen it sort of in the Champions League over the years and stuff like that. He's one of the only players that we've got that really kind of can cause the the other team to really sort of back off and stuff. He's integral to the Welsh team. We've got the likes of Ramsey again, which is, another sort of key player for us. But with Bale, he does offer things like the free kicks and the finishing aspects that obviously, he's played recently for Spurs the last few matches and scored a few goals. So he's one of the players that can, do something out of nothing, really.
Yeah. And outside of Bale and Ramsey, have you got any other players that you think are really important to this Welsh side?
I think Dan James is important. Like I said, he's got bags of pace. So, for him running at teams and stuff is it helps us get up the pitch as well. In against, you know, really good teams and stuff like that, you know, when he's got the ball to counter and stuff like that. So he's obviously a very important player. I think probably one of the other ones, I like Connor Roberts at right back. You know, he just runs all day, you know, so again, you know, we look quite dangerous when we're running at teams then, and obviously, you know, to try and create opportunities and stuff. So I think they're the main ones that I would kind of highlight as key players. I think the rest, you know, or lots of the rest can sort of interchange a lot, but I think if you've got all those on the pitch, then we're looking good, really.
Okay, so let's look at your group then for the Euros. Where do you think? How far do you think you can go, and what's your thoughts on this group?
I think it is a tough group. I mean, you look at the likes of Italy. I think they won every match in their group, or was maybe the World Cup qualifiers.
22 games unbeaten, from what I remember.
Right. Okay. You know, so they're clearly going to be the favourites of the group. You know, and you know the other two teams are pretty strong as well. I mean, I've seen obviously. I think Turkey beat Holland or smashed them a few weeks ago with Ziyech Yilmaz up front. You know, so they're going to be dangerous as well. I think. I mean, I'd like to think that we will get through the group, but a lot of it depends on obviously, you know, getting results against Turkey and Switzerland. Because I think Italy are going to be too strong for us, really. That's not to say that we can't get any result out of that. You know, again, a lot of it depends on our defence and whether someone, you know, can obviously come up with, you know, a good chance or something like that. But I'd like to think we'll get out of the group, but I can't see us sort of replicating the 2016 success that we've had. You know, I think if we get out to the group stages, then obviously you know, you've in a one-off game you've got a chance against anyone really. You know, as last Euros sort of showed. But I think getting out to the group stage and then just sort of not having any expectations and going from there, then really.
Yeah, Rob, have you got any questions for Colin before we move on to fantasy?
We've said it a few times with some other teams, but what strikes me most about the squad as a whole is how young it is and how inexperienced it is, especially with players at a top level. Like if we look at the forwards, you've got Kiefer Moore, Tyler Roberts. And I mean, Keith Moore's at Cardiff. Tyler Roberts, yeah, he's at Leeds and has made the odd appearance here and there and come on, but not really been able to sort of nail a place into the starting lineup. In midfield, you've got Ethan Ampadu playing for Chelsea, but yeah, still very young at 20, not appearing in the first team there. You've got Joe Allen. Joe Allen's got loads of experience, but yeah, playing in the Championship with Stoke. Dan James is probably one of the more experienced players now in the team, although he's only 23, playing at United, and like he's not a nailed on starter at United, but you see him like probably every other game you'll see him make an appearance. And he's played a lot in Europe for them. And then, and defensively, like you've spoken about, Nico Williams being possibly a big part of Welsh defensively in this tournament. And we've seen him break into the Liverpool side more by luck than anything for himself with the injuries that Liverpool got this season. But yeah, he's only 20 years old. It's like strange, really. Like they've such a young squad, and then you've got the likes of, I mean, the only players over 30 caps. You've got Bale, Aaron Ramsey, Joe Allen, and then like Ben Davies and Chris Gunter, and Wayne Hennessy. Everyone else is under 30 caps, which is crazy. Do you think this is kind of like a stepping stone on the way to something better, like get the experience of a major tournament, being part of something like this, and then moving on? Or is it like we'll be lucky if we qualify again? What do you think?
No, I think you're spot on. I mean, I think they said there was 5 players from the last Euros that have been there, which are obviously the ones that have got lots of caps. I think it definitely can be seen as a stepping stone. I mean, I think it's more the fact that, it's just experience at this point, because as you said, lots of them are young players that, if they've played for top teams, it's not really often, it's the odd cap appearance here, Nico Williams, he's not really, knocking on the door to start at Liverpool or anything like that, so they are very much sort of inexperienced. I mean, the good thing is that obviously we do have a lot of players of that age, coming through, which is great. I mean, we've still got some that obviously didn't get selected. Is it Rabbi Matondo? He was obviously a youngster who's in Schalke, so for once we seem to have, some quality and depth in the young, players. Ampadu is a nailed-on starter for Wales, but as you said, he's been on loan for the last 2 seasons. He's not going to get into the Chelsea team anytime soon. But yet he's obviously already integral to the actual national team. So yeah, I think it's a case of sort of having the experience of the tournament. I don't see any reason why we can't qualify for more tournaments in the coming years, because it's not like we've gone through. I think it was 58 was the last tournament we were in before the Euros. So, it's certainly, it can only help them having the experience of a tournament and stuff like that. Whether we, really do anything or not is almost slightly irrelevant, because, in a couple of years' time, then they're going to benefit from that. And hopefully they're all going to be playing, far more, for their clubs and stuff like that then going forward.
And I mean,
Okay.
one other thing is, like, it's hard not to really touch on the big news really from like pre-tournament, and that's with Rob Page still as the first team manager going into the tournament, with Ryan Giggs and his indiscretions, we shall say, being left out, and like he's still not officially been given the sack, but he may as well have been it by now. I mean, how is it like feeling as like someone more on the inside than we are, like someone that will have seen like this probably covered in the Welsh news a lot more than it has been over here, although it has been huge news here. Is it a worry? Like, I mean, he was in charge of the World Cup qualifiers, or I mean, what's the feeling about it all at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing, obviously. He had a tough job when he came in, obviously taking on from Chris Coleman, who'd obviously done a really good job. And in fairness, I mean, I enjoyed the football we played under him. He was good attacking football. I mean, it's disappointing, obviously. Yeah, from what you said, it has been covered in the papers and things like that. I think we all assume that he's not going to come back as manager. It's all but, announced, really, isn't it? But I don't think it's really going to affect us that much, if I'm being honest, because obviously he was an inexperienced manager anyway. So, I think the main part is that the core of the group is pretty, solid and stuff like that. So I think with the experience that we've had previously, and we've obviously got, some big players and stuff, I don't think it's necessarily going to impact us that much. And obviously the fact that I'm assuming that Giggs didn't really have a say in, which players are going and things like that, so at least, all the players that have been selected, even the youngsters and stuff, at least they feel as though they've been selected by the, the current coach now, so I think that's probably a good thing. But yeah, I can't see it making a massive difference if I'm being honest. But obviously, as a nation, it is disappointing because he's obviously probably the best player we've ever had. So it would have been a great sort of feel good factor for him to take us into another.
If only he was English.
I bet he thinks the same there.
But let's talk about fantasy now. So obviously you chose Bale as your talisman, but I think he's quite expensive. Do you think he's worth the value that he's got there?
I guess it depends on what kind of form he's going to take into the Euros. I mean, if we're looking at what he's recently done in the last few matches in Spurs, then he could definitely be worth a punt. But obviously, it is a high price for him. But I mean, he will be on the free kicks and on our penalties and stuff like that. So so there is potential for him to get big points and stuff. I mean, I weirdly, I didn't choose him in my team just because, I think that there's probably, with the group we've got as well, I can't see us really sort of, potentially scoring loads, and I think that unless obviously, you score in, then he may not necessarily add that much to your team.
So I guess moving on from Bale then, if we look at this Wales side, are there any players here that when you look at it, you think there are any out of position players that play in defence that are listed as midfielders or midfielders listed as defenders or anything like that?
Unfortunately, probably not. Obviously, other than Bale, that I would probably say that he's going to, probably be our attacker rather than a midfielder. So that obviously might give you a bit of bonus things. But the rest, no, they're all pretty, nailed on in their positions, really. I mean, I like sort of Connor Roberts because he tends to be more of a wing back rather than a full back, so he does get forwards and he can get some assists and stuff like that. And the same with Ben Davies, the other side, because we may well play three at the back as well, so they may sort of tend to play a bit more like midfielders rather than defenders. But other than that, they're all pretty much nailed in their right spots, really.
Okay. And then in terms of fantasy options, so we know that you think Bale might be a bit overpriced. Are there any other players here that you think that we should be looking at and choosing from?
I've got Connor Roberts in my team for 4.5 million, and he's pretty much nailed on to start, and defensively we're pretty solid. Possibly Joe Rodon as well for the set piece, for the set pieces and things like that. I do like Kiefer Moore as well. I'm hoping that he's going to start up front, and he's had a good record in international matches and stuff. So I think that he could well be a good bet. But I think I would probably avoid the midfield options and maybe focus more on our defence. I think, we've got a chance of, having maybe a couple of clean sheets and things like that then. So I think probably our defenders are going to get a bit more of the points rather than sort of the midfielders, getting goals and things like that then.
And who do you think starts in goal for you guys? Is it Wayne Hennessy or Danny Ward?
Danny Ward has been starting in goals. I mean, it is a weakness in our team because, I mean, between Wayne Hennessy and Danny Ward, I don't think either have pretty much played at all season. So, I mean, the only games they're actually getting are nationally. I mean, Wayne Hennessy's always delivered, when he's been in goals, and obviously he's been a big player for us. But I do actually expect Danny Ward to probably start, just going on recent sort of formations and stuff like that. Then he's tended to have the nod over Wayne Hennessy then.
Okay. Rob, any questions for Colin?
Well, you've stolen my one. I wanted to know whether it was Hennessy or Ward.
Oh, right. Sorry.
I think it's a bit of a challenge with this side because I get the feeling personally that a lot of it, like any sort of anything attacking, is going to come through Gareth Bale. Like whether he'll if you score then he'll be part of it in some way. And it kind of makes me think, if I'm gonna get a Welsh asset, it needs to be back Gareth Bale. And the thing that puts me off is 9.5 worth it. Aaron Ramsey at 8.5, I think it's kind of exactly the same thing. He'll be there or thereabouts. Like, even when you score, he'll be involved. But Dan James at 6.5 is quite appealing. On the other hand, I mean, I'm not sure whether it's a bias as a Man United fan or whether he is a great option. I just feel that against the Swiss and against Italy and against Turkey, you're very much going to be playing a sort of a counter-attacking style of football. And we've already spoken about like his explosive pace that he possesses. He could be a great asset at 6.5 as someone that you'll have him in your team on match day 1, and he'll be sitting there. But at that price as midfielder, I think you're quite happy to go, well, he's got 2 points, I can sub him out. Like, he's at a price where you're happy to take a bit of a gamble, maybe over some of the other players at that price point. But yeah, I'm just not sure about Bale and Ramsey at those more premium prices for what you're going to get for them, maybe.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, like you said, 6.5 for Dan James is probably the best value player that we've got. Like you said, we're going to rely on him with his pace and stuff, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't play all the games. As you said, I think between Ramsey and Bale, if you're going to go for either one of them, you'd go for Bale just because he's more likely to possibly get goals rather than Ramsey. But they are both sort of high up on the prices compared to some other players in other nations, really. So yeah, I think Dan James would probably be the one to pick from, basically.
In terms of players that you've chosen, is it just Connor Roberts you've got in so far?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's just Connor Roberts that I've got at the moment. It's one of those that I can't really, as you said, I think outside of Bale and Ramsey, I can't see that many, and Dan James, that many players sort of getting that many points because, rightly said, most things go through them. And I don't think that in the first game week that I would sort of back more than one defender that we've got. But I kind of think that Connor Roberts offers a bit more sort of going forward. So at the moment, he's the one in my team. And I might be tempted to put Danny Ward in as well, after the first week, just to know whether he's starting or not, to then go from there then, really.
Okay. In terms of, I guess, options then, outside of those, no one really offers much value. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I mean, the defence is, for the vast majority of them, sort of 4.5 million, they will be good sort of value in general. But I think when it comes to, for instance, more up front, I'm not sure whether he's going to start the first match, or whether they're going to play Bale less. So I'd be a bit reluctant to sort of go down that route until really the formation and stuff like that. Then, I mean, Harry Wilson is, a decent bet, for his creativity and stuff and his free kicks. But again, I think is at 7.5 million. It's quite high up for that as well.
Okay. And in terms of set pieces, Gareth Bale and all of them?
I think it'd be the Gareth Bale or Harry Wilson. I mean, Bale does tend to take most of them, but Harry Wilson is actually brilliant at free kicks as well. As for penalties and stuff, I would imagine it'd be Bale all the way, yeah.
And do you have any defenders that offer like goal threat from set pieces? What you guys like from set pieces?
We're not too bad, yeah. I would probably go for either Rodon or Metham. probably Rodon I'd go for, because I'd imagine that he's going to be starting, and he does offer something from a set piece. So yeah, that would be the route I'd go down for the set piece points. Yeah.
Okay, Rob, any final questions?
Not really. I think it's interesting. I think it's definitely. I think it's a tough one because of that match day 1 fixture. We'll just have a quick look at the group, and that match day 1 fixture against Switzerland. I think we'll find out a lot about Wales, about how they're going to do, but that could be the game that they return in. Which is the tricky one. And you might have missed the boat, because I think, honestly, I think a lot of people would agree, like Italy is that the standout, then Turkey probably next, then Switzerland, then Wales. So if they're going to get some points, it's going to be the Swiss game, and then you can kind of go, oh, actually, they might be worth it. Like Bale might be worth it on using your limitless chip for that Turkey game. Like you might decide, yeah, it's good. It is good value if there's no budget to work with. I think it just makes them really tricky to go for in that first match day. Although I might go for Dan James as a little gamble. But yeah, I think it's just the standout thing from the fixtures. It just hasn't worked out. Ideally, you kind of wanted them the other way round.
Yeah,
exactly. So that they played Italy first, then you could go, right, they didn't get the result, but I enjoy, I'm confident going with a Welsh player into the Turkey game or the Swiss game, because you wouldn't feel the pressure of having to put anyone in against Italy. But I think I kind of want to put someone in because I don't know what to expect from them. Would you think that's fair?
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. Yeah, like you said, the matches, get tougher as you go along. So like you said, the likelihood is, I think Dan James would be a good shout against Switzerland, because I think, he's going to be nailed on starter. And as you said, it's probably our easiest game of the group then. But yeah, I'm feeling that, you could obviously gamble and go for Bale and things like that. But I think probably Dan James would be sort of the one to take a gamble on, I think, in the first fixture.
Carwyn, have you got anything else that before we go, to add or tell our listeners about Wales, the national side, or anything about fantasy that you haven't covered so far?
No, not particularly. No, I think, like you said, there's not going to be that many of our players that are going to be widely picked, other than Bale and Ramsey and Dan James, I think. But yeah, hopefully, if we get off to a good sort of start in the group, then potentially in the FPL, then we can pick up some points. And obviously, if we don't necessarily need to win, the last game or anything like that, then we can be sort of defensively solid and things like that. Then, so hopefully, yeah, we're going to get through the groups and just give it a go.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We both appreciate it, and I'm sure all our listeners will as well. Stop laughing at me. To the listeners, thank you very much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and look out for our next installment. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.